Hey, and welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King. We are super excited to welcome everybody into our live show, to the podcast, to our YouTube channel here on signing day. And we're just going to get rolling. We've got a ton of the 2024 signees here with you guys that are going to come on in. And to start, we have Auburn's quarterback commitment making another return appearance on the show. And Walker White, thank you so much for hopping on here today, man. I guess what does it feel like finally to put pen to paper and get this thing over with?
Heck yeah, it feels good. It feels great. Just this whole day, signing, it just felt great. Making it official and officially becoming an Auburn Tiger in front of all the people that I love and have grown up with. And so it was a special day, and it's definitely relaxing. Now I can just continue to go work and get ready for when I get there in January. But it's definitely a weight off the shoulders.
We've got Auburn D-line signee now. It's going to take a while to not say commit. Malik Blocton, he's already been going through practices. Walker, for you, it was a quick process in terms of visiting Auburn once, finding Auburn, and kind of quickly committing. Malik, for you, Auburn has been in the picture for a long time. You've been at probably every Auburn home game over the past 2 years at least,
yes,
and more home games before that. What's it like to have it done, and not only have it done, but you're already going through bowl practices now? How's that been?
I mean, it's been really amazing. It's really a blessing because, I grew up wanting to play for Auburn. I've been an Auburn fan, and just for me to be playing and practicing at Auburn, it's kind of surreal to me.
Yeah, for you guys, I mean, you're now. I mean, you've been talking about being teammates, but now you're actually teammates. What's it feel like to not have to go recruit these other guys? I mean, there's still some other guys out there to recruit, but what's it feel like to have this done and to go, hey, Walker, in a few weeks, you'll be here. You'll be one of those guys that'll be here working out, doing all that stuff. What's it feel like for you guys to now be officially teammates?
Oh, it feels good to be officially teammates. Because Walker, he really like a leader. Like I got a chance to see him play in person. And it was just amazing to have that being brought to Auburn. It's a real good upside to Auburn.
For sure, yeah, I'll carry off of that. I think this class and this 24 class specifically, we have all grown so much in relationship. There's Cam. What's up, bro? And we've all, we enjoy being around each other and we enjoy each other's presence. Just the other day. Cam just joined on, but Cam and Perry and Malcolm were on the indoor racing each other. Now we still don't know who won, but at the end of the day, we enjoy being around each other. So just to finally and officially be each other's teammates, fires me up because I'll be surrounded, and we'll all be surrounded by so much talent. So I'm just excited to get better just by my own teammates.
Cam, what has this process kind of been like for you to get here to signing day? You obviously had to come over a little bit later after committing elsewhere and then ending up here, but now you're an Auburn Tiger and you joined probably the best wide receiver class in the country alongside Perry and Bryce and Malcolm and maybe one more later on.
Man, it feels great, man. I can't even describe how I feel right now. Even though I feel like I just joined the family, it feels like I've been a part of it forever since the beginning of my recruiting process. Because Auburn, they never stopped showing me love. Walker never stopped getting in touch with me. Even when I committed to Texas A&M, he would still text me, "I want to be your teammate. I want to throw to you," and he just never showed. He just kept showing consistency, and so did other receivers.
Cam, I talked to you, a couple of days ago about Coach Freeze and Marcus Davis and how they just kept coming after you. But how important was it for guys like this to keep coming after you, for these players to go, "Hey, bro, we want you. I know you're committed elsewhere, but come join us." How important was that for you as you were trying to kind of really to kind of decipher it and get through everything?
Oh, it was very important because at the end of the day, those gonna be my teammates at the end of the day, and those are my brothers for life. So really, they show they want a relationship and build a relationship with each other, and it really shows the bond that we're gonna have as brothers.
Walker, I guess for you, what's it like knowing that you have Cam, you have Perry, you have Bryce, you have Malcolm, you've got all those guys now to throw it to?
Man, it's definitely it's firing me up. I'm having to grab, the college guys that I know here in Little Rock, so I can throw at them and somewhat get acclimated. You know, I'm throwing with these college guys, and I'm like, you know, I'm just trying to get acclimated to this speed. But even then, you know, I'm gonna have to get so many reps with guys like Cam, Bryce Perry, and Malcolm, just because they're so freaking fast and quick. And so, you know, it fires me up to be and have that opportunity to throw to guys, these elite receivers. And I can't wait for, honestly, them to see what I can do, because they've never really seen me throw. I know Malik saw me throw, and I've thrown with Bryce once. But I'm just excited for us to figure each other's skills and strengths and weaknesses out and make each other better. It's going to be so much fun.
Malik, what was it like to put on the helmet and jersey, even though it was practice, and do it not for a photo shoot, but do it for real today?
I mean, it felt good. I mean, they didn't really have all my stuff ready today. Kind of had me late for practice, but I mean, it was all worth it when I got out there. Like, it was really fun. Coach Gary, he better than what I expected. Like, he really like slowed it down, made sure I learned everything. And I've been talking with Keldrick, learning the plays. And I mean, I just love Auburn. Like, it's just been a fun experience for me so far.
Malik, you're one of the first ones to hop in here, so we'll let you get out of here in a second. For those of you that are watching live and those that are watching later, make sure you follow Malik on Instagram at Reaper Malik, and on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Malik Blocton. We appreciate, and we'll plug everybody else as well, but we appreciate y'all hopping in. Malik, for you, just to wrap it up, kind of what's your message to the fans? I mean, you can't play in the bowl game, but you're getting ready with those guys and getting ready for next season, and everybody's fired up for next year.
Yes, sir. My message to Auburn is, like, y'all gonna get the best out of me for the next 3 to 4 years. Like, I'm gonna give y'all everything I got. I'm not going nowhere. I mean, this is where I want to be, and I'm gonna give y'all everything I got.
Perfect. Thanks, Malik. I feel like we've interviewed you definitely the most out of the 2024 guys. I feel like we've interviewed you 30 times now.
I think me and Malik, I think I talked to him the first time when he was in the 9th grade, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So it's been a long time coming, and a long time in the future too. So we look forward to it, bud.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all.
Yep. See you, Malik. Oh,
there's
Cam, I got to ask you before we let you get out of here. Where did Indeed come from? That's your signature. That's Cam Coleman, synonymous with Cam Coleman. Where did Indeed come from?
To be honest, I was trying to be different. So, like, really, like, like, instead of saying okay, or like, I don't know, instead of saying okay, I was like, Indeed, and I just kept saying it. It just came a part of my vocabulary, like, and I don't even say okay anymore. I just keep saying Indeed, and
yeah, and it's just become a thing, right?
Yeah, I was in class. I think my teacher was talking to me. I was like, okay, Indeed. I was like, oh, I'm going to start saying
it. How important is it for you guys, I guess Walker first and then Cam, to be together and have a spring and to start working together? Walker, you said you thrown to Bryce a little bit, but to have guys on campus and to be able to go through the spring, how valuable is that going to be moving forward?
Yeah, it's going to be huge. I mean, at the end of the day, your connection that you have with your receivers is so important. And so it's just going to be reps after reps, and throwing ROA in the indoor, just me inviting guys like me inviting my receivers to the indoor, you know, outside of practice or outside of workouts, and just getting those extra reps, because at an elite level in a conference like the SEC, you have to have the perfect timing. You have to have the perfect connection, just so you can have success on the field. And so it's going to be really important, but it's going to be a blast, you know, getting to work out with Coach Dom. That dude, I think they call him a Viking. It's kind of funny, but it's going to be fun being able to work with Coach Dom and all this the strength staff, and just getting bigger, faster, stronger. Being able to work under Coach Freeze, Coach Austin, Coach Stone, and Coach Montgomery, like, all those guys have so much experience. So personally, for me in the quarterback standpoint, you know, I'm just very excited to learn more about the game and like the knowledge of the game, learning defenses, fronts, coverages. So I'm pumped for that, but I just can't wait to get up there and start working.
Cam, for you, and then we'll let y'all both get out of here, and we'll talk with Kensley.
I'm going to piggyback off what Walker said. it was about the timing. I'm ready. Very excited to build the chemistry with Walker. Have yet to catch a ball, but there's gonna be plenty of balls that we run on routes on there that we just come pick up the timing, pick up the chemistry, and this is really I'm just very excited to get stronger with Coach Dom and really this string staff. I'm ready to get better.
Cam, one question from the chat actually. Wearing number 8 next year?
That's the plan. I'm gonna go in there, work for my number, and we're gonna see we're gonna see.
All right. We appreciate y'all. For everyone that's watching live and listening later, follow Walker on Instagram at Walker_White14, on Twitter, Walker_White5. Walker, we'll see you in a couple weeks in San Antonio. And then Cam, you can follow him on Instagram at Cam Coleman and on Twitter at Cam Coleman12. Cam, Jason won't be there. He'll be in Nashville for the bowl game, but I'll see you down in Orlando for the Under Armour All-American game here. And I guess it's about a week now.
Yeah, a weekend. About next week. Crazy.
Yep. Yeah, time flies.
Congrats, good luck, and we'll see y'all soon.
Yes, indeed. See you, Cam. See you, Kensley.
There he is. All right, Kensley. How's it feel? How's it feel to have it done and be signed and to not have to worry about the recruiting process any longer?
It feels great, just relief and all that. It just feels great to be signed.
Kensley, you were really one of the first guys in this class. You joined pretty early in June. Walker was before you and a couple other guys, but what was it for you where you saw the vision early on, and then how rewarding was it to kind of see the vision get fulfilled? Finishing with a top 10 class there at the end.
Just knowing our coaching staff is going to work hard and try to recruit the best. Knowing that the history of Coach Freeze and what he does and we're recruiting, we knew that if we get like a good amount, that everybody's gonna start getting aboard and just come with us.
When you watch them this season, were you paying close attention to a guy like Jalen Simpson? Do you feel like that's a kind of a spot and a style of play that kind of fits what you would bring to the table when you get to Auburn?
I pay attention to all of them, like Keontae, Jalen. I really don't pick one. I just pay attention to the whole defense because myself, like I could do everything. I could play corner, slot corner, safety. So I just pay attention to all of them to make sure that I learn all of them and to get on the field early. And
yeah, where do you think you'll start out? Do you have any idea, or do you think it'll be wherever you kind of move around some and see what the best fit is in the defense?
I'll say whatever is the best fit for the defense.
Kensley, just talk about your relationship with some of these guys on the Auburn staff and how much that's grown before committing, getting offered in the spring and then committing and whatnot with Coach Zach, Coach Crime, Coach Freeze, all those guys.
Just the relationship is great. Coach Zach, he makes sure to check up on me every day, keep in contact. And then another person that y'all probably wouldn't know is Keontae Scott. I'll say he's probably one of the main reasons why I committed. Because the relationship with him was great. He kept it real with me, and just everything I could ask for. All I asked for was the honest, and he kept it real with me. And that's how Coach Zach and the rest of the coaching staff did. So that's probably one of the main reasons why I committed there.
How big is it to have Keontae coming back? When I talked to Jamonta Waller, and he said, "Hey, he loved it that Jalen McLeod was coming back. It would give him that guy to kind of be a mentor with." Is that the same thing for you and Keontae to have him coming back for a year? Is that big for you to be able to kind of follow in and kind of maybe learn how life is?
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity because I feel like I could learn from him and probably just look at him as a big brother and just keep learning from him and then break down film with him, everything. I just feel like our relationship is great, so I feel like I could learn from him and then we could relate on some stuff too.
I know this is sometimes it gets lost because guys say, "Hey, I'm kind of my own guy." Is there a guy that when you watched growing up or when you watch the last few years or watch now that you go, "Man, I kind of pattern my game after that guy," or is this just you being who you are and this is the way you play?
I would say there's not really a person that I could model my game after because I feel like I'm a one of a kind because I could do everything, but I feel like I grab small pieces of everybody's game. Just like one of my favorite safeties is Ed Reed, but I feel like I could go. I'm a ball hawk like him, and I could tackle like Brian Dawkins, and I could cover like one of the best corners like I'll say Charles Woodson. I could cover like Charles Woodson. So I feel like there's not someone that I really model my game after. I just try to grab small pieces from everybody and connect it to my game because I don't want to be like nobody else. I just want to be myself.
Kensley, just go ahead,
so
Jason.
What's the focus for you between now and when you get on campus? What's the focus point for you, and then heading into that first year? Is there anything you say, hey, I really want to get this done. I want to do this before I get ready for my first season?
I just got to get the playbook down. The main focus right now is getting used to the speed, getting used to the whole lot different coverages. Because I know once I get the coverages down and like the scheme, everything like that I'm going to get on the field because it's going to be hard to hold me back because I can play any position. So once I feel like I can master 2 positions, then I should get on the field.
Kensley, I got a chance to talk with you a couple weeks ago about getting named to the All-American Bowl. Now we know who all is going to be there. It's you, DeMarcus Riddick, DeAndre Carter, Walker White, Amaris Williams. I think that wraps up the group of Auburn guys that'll be there. Just how excited are you to play in that game and be able to build a bond with some of these other Auburn guys out there in San Antonio before getting on campus?
I'm excited. I could see like where my team is at, how we can head into the spring, how we can head into the regular season. Just to play a game together, and before we go to the regular season, just a blessing.
Kensley, really appreciate you hopping on. I think we'll wrap it up there so that way you can get on with the rest of your night. For everybody that's watching and listening later, make sure to follow Kensley on Instagram at k.faust3 and on Twitter at Faustin. Kensley, really appreciate it, man, and we'll see you in San Antonio here in a couple weeks.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Kensley. Appreciate it.
Yep.
That's a way to start. That's
Indeed.
That was a fun start indeed to the show, but talking to those guys, you get a sense of the excitement, and we've seen it kind of building. We saw it today, and I mean it's a top 10 class. I think it may be up to 7 now.
It's 7 after Florida State lost Armando Blunt to Miami.
Yeah, it's up to 7, and so it's the number 7 class in the country. And I mean, we've been talking about it for a couple of months now. What's the possibilities? Where could this class get to? And I think even in our wildest thoughts, we were like, you might get to that top 10, but to get to 7 and still have the possibility to grow a little more, that's pretty darn impressive.
Well, and here's the thing too. You're 7 and you've signed what, 19? I think it's 19 off the top. Yeah, you've signed 19 and you're at 7. I would need to look at the numbers, but I would guess that Auburn is the highest ranked team at that number in terms of number of commits. I know they're ahead of some teams that have 25, 26 guys. There's a ton of talent from top to bottom in this class. Not only did you raise the ceiling of the classes, number 5 in average player rating from Jay in the chat, thank you. Not only did you raise the ceiling of the class in getting really high-end talent in 5 stars, you raised the floor as well. It was a complete boost in terms of talent level for Auburn's class. And, we talked with Hugh Freeze today. He said the goal was to get top 10. Right now there's 7. Still a couple names out there as well that could boost it up, and we'll just have to see what happens with them. But overall, it's hard for you to view 2024 signing day and Auburn's 2024 signing class as anything but a pretty big success. Nathan,
I think back to, well, like you're saying, Christian, like this is obviously the day to look at these individual kids and what they're going to bring and hear about their stories. But I just kind of, thinking for a second, and Jason kind of mentioned it, the zoomed out view of the beginning of this thing. And it's important, I think, keep that perspective that we said, I mean, it might have been just a few months ago that we were having conversations like, hey, top 13-ish, 12-ish class would be really, really good for them in 24. Then it seems like you definitely have a good shot at top 10 in 2025. But Freeze laid out the blueprint today. And Jason, it's something he said, he had that ESPN interview shortly after he got hired where he joked, he was like, look, if we're not recruiting at a top 10 level in the next couple of years, I probably won't be here. He knew how quickly they needed to turn this thing around. And like Christian said, and me and Christian were talking about it today, you just look at the quality, even down to the bottom of their recruiting class. Like DJ Barber is near the bottom of this recruiting class. That is a good football player there at the bottom. Yeah. And so it's a completely different feeling. and not to harp too much on the recruiting under Brian Harsin, but it's just a completely different feeling from top to bottom, because then you go to look at the top, and it's like these are top 100, top 50, just elite players. There at the top, we just talked to one of them, and Cam Coleman, and obviously that receiver group is a big reason why they are where they are right now.
Yeah, no, to me the thing that jumps out is we're still 12 months and some change from this staff taking over, and to think about what this roster will look like when they take the field. What is it, August 31st? Is that the first game next year?
I think so.
Think about the talent level of the roster on August 31st of 2024 as compared to what it was, in January. I mean, December 1st of 2022 is astronomical to think about the job that's been done. We've already seen it on just to get to what they were able to do this season, how much work had to be done. And now you add more to it, and there's still going to be more pieces to it. I would guess between now and by the time they get on the field in August, that there'll be 4 or 5 more pieces, whether it be transfer or high school or whatever. I think there'll be 4 or 5 more pieces to this group before they're done. And just to look at what they've done is pretty remarkable. And yeah, this class is a centerpiece class. And yeah, I think if we're being honest, it may not be the best class that they bring in because this group right here, they know the importance of going out and signing top talent. And here's what they also will tell you. They'll tell you, hey, look, we're going to try to get somebody better next year. That's what you have to do. That's how you have to do this thing. And I think this is a group that can go out and challenge that anyway.
For those that are watching, we'll have a couple more guests still hopping on. We've got wheels churning behind the scenes a little bit. I think Amaris Williams is hopefully hopping back on in a second. He was on before the show, and then his phone died. The first guy, the OG commit, Amon Lane Gaines, is hoping to hop on. I think Jamonte Waller's in the pipeline as well. Seth Wilford might be on, maybe a couple other guys as well. So we're trying to cook some things up for y'all.
Jamonte said his family was taking him out for a celebration dinner, so he had to excuse himself. I said that's just fine. You go. That
is very acceptable.
Unacceptable, honestly.
To enjoy your day on signing day, I mean, wow, no.
And not spend it over at Auburn. Yeah, we actually had Amaris in here before we got rolling. It was just me and Christian and Amaris, and he was like, "Guys, my phone's about to die." And then me and Christian said, "All right, well, why don't we get this thing started?" It was about 5 minutes early. Why don't we get this thing rolling? And I'm glad I didn't hit start because he just popped off the screen. So I was like, "Well, that must be the phone gone." Christian, what do you want to roll through the signees? Maybe I've got your meet the class story pulled up. We can maybe roll through these guys because we're gonna be going here for a while, and I can kind of touch on each of them, and you and Jason can kind of give me your take on each of these guys. I will start in reverse here on the back end. So you kind of went in position order. JUCO guy Laquan Robinson there at safety, going to be an early enrollee. Christian, you and I were talking about him today. Number 1 JUCO safety in the country. That's a guy that Zon Puck had already said he's going to. I don't think he'll get drafted, but he's moving on to the pros after this. We know Jalen Simpson is going pro. That's 2 vacant starting safety spots. They feel pretty good about Laquan Robinson being able to compete for one of those spots. Yeah,
I'm going to let Jason touch on this one, actually, because Jason covered him a couple of years ago when he originally had his high school career in Alabama.
Yeah, played from Greenville High School. So this is a kid that's familiar with Auburn, 45 minutes or so from his hometown. I actually saw him play Pike Road in Malik when Malik was probably a sophomore, I would think. Saw them play over Pike Road. And Laquan Robinson is extremely athletic, very talented. Guy that can get downhill in a hurry. And I think a guy that when you think about junior college player, you think about guy that's matured, physical. And now you think about taking that to another step because you go from high school to junior college and now you go, it's about double that leap to now get to the Southeastern Conference. But you get a guy that will have a chance to come in early and kind of get started, get ready to see if he can push for playing time. And I think that's the expectation when you sign a junior college guy that's been out for a couple of years.
Staying at safety, I'll leave it with you here, Jason, on Caleb Harris. because I know that's somebody you're really high on as being. We talk about players near the bottom in terms of where they're rated, but I know you're high on his ability to perform at the college level.
I think me and Christian both love Caleb Harris, especially watching him this season. We saw him early last year, had a cast on his hand and was having to play with injuries, had some shoulder issues, but he gets downhill, really athletic. And the thing that jumped out to me about Caleb Harris this year is he was returning kickoffs at Thompson. And you think about all the skill guys and the little guys that are fast, all those guys, Caleb Harris was their kickoff return guy. That shows you a taste of that athleticism. And I said it when we saw him play Clay Chalkle. I said, I think he is going to be a Eugene Asante type of player maybe before it's over with. I think he can wind up being that star linebacker, a guy that can play in the box, maybe can play some, do some stuff in the slot. But he's a versatile guy, and I think he's going to be a good player.
Christian, you mentioned him on Lane Gannis. That's the day one. That's the day one in this group, a guy who went through it, and it was big. I think that they kept Zach Etheridge around, but look, he could have had a lot of opportunities when change came in this program, and he decided to stick through it. A 4-star composite cornerback that I know you guys think the world of him and his character and who he is as a person, and I know you're excited to see him get on the field too.
Yeah, I mean, it was last July, Jason, a couple of weeks before he committed during Big Cat Weekend. We drove up to Moody to see him at his school, get everything ready for that ceremony, talk to him, talk to his dad, Jake Gannis, the head coach there at Moody. And it was only last July, but it feels like it was about 5 years ago from everything that's happened at Auburn. But he's stayed totally loyal through the whole process. Probably going to be a nickel in this defense. I think that's probably where he fits best. This is a guy that, Zach Etheridge obviously really liked. Coach Crime came in, and Coach Crime liked him as well. And they decided this is a guy that we want to keep in the class. When he first committed, LSU was in the mix. I don't know who else ended up really being in the mix after that because he was so loyal to Auburn. I just don't think he ever really looked elsewhere because he didn't feel like he needed to. He might not have been the most vocal of guys in terms of peer recruiting on Twitter, but he did quite a bit of that. And his loyalty, I asked Hugh Freeze about that earlier today. His loyalty can't really be overstated. Rarely do you have guys that commit that early on and end up sticking, especially when you talk about going through a coaching change. Yes, his position coach stuck, but still, he was a guy that, Brian Harsin did actually, as surprising as it is, did actually recruit him and said, hey, we want you to lead the 2024 class. And he did that, and he led it to the end, and now he's a big part of that for Hugh Freeze and this staff.
And we just had him on here, Jason, now going up to Kensley Faustin, who's from Naples, Florida. Another guy who is, when you look at his tape and his qualities that he brings to the table, again, you talk about his confidence and how excited he was comparing himself to all those great players. But he made a lot of plays. That's just what he did. He was just a
ball hog.
I hate to mention the guy that he mentioned because it's the first guy that comes to mind when I think about him. But Ed Reed's the first guy that comes to mind when I think about Kensley. When I think about the guy that you look at and goes, not the biggest guy. He's not 6'3". He doesn't look like Sean Taylor did, but all he does is make plays, and he can make plays when the ball gets in his hands too. And so, man, if you just kind of scratch the surface of what Ed Reed was, then you're still going to be pretty darn good. And so that's the guy that always comes to mind when I think about him because of, the build, kind of the way he looks and the way he makes plays. And so, if you're Auburn, you go, hey, if you were to get anything close to an Ed Reed, you'd feel pretty good.
Still rolling through the defensive backs, Christian Agai and Jalen Crawford. That I thought the J Island moniker that Andy gave him in those. By the way, that's super cool. I don't know what you guys thought of the little graphic things. Super cool idea. But yeah, I mean that's the kind of guy that Auburn hopes he is going to become. Just a lengthy and athletic cornerback on the outside. I know you guys saw him play a couple of times. What are your impressions of Jay Crawford?
Yeah, Jason and I went to go and see him the first game of the season this fall. Parkview playing against Kell, I think, on a Wednesday night. And we came away from that game thinking that Jalen Crawford could be a lot of different things for this Auburn secondary, to be honest. He was recruited as a cornerback. I think he can definitely play as a cornerback. I think he has the tools to slide inside and play as a nickel or a star. I think that might honestly be his best spot. And I think he could Jason, this was your take, so I'm not going to pretend to steal it, but I think he could be a Jalen Simpson type guy. I really do.
Yeah, I think he has the ability to do that. And Jalen Simpson was a guy that was a corner first and was, it's like, he's not quite big enough to be a safety. And Jalen Crawford, again, is not the big, huge, big body guy. But now in the way you have to play defense, you have to be able to cover no matter what position you play. And if you can get a long guy like that can play safety and can cover some ground, then it makes the defense much better. So, I think Jalen Crawford's a guy that could easily slide back and maybe be one of those guys that plays, because, Jalen Simpson playing safety, it did not feel like it's a guy that, he felt more like a corner that played safety. That's the kind of way he plays the game. Jalen Crawford can be a similar type player.
Yeah, a guy that we talked about earlier, DJ Barber, who made one of the best plays I've seen in a state championship game in a long time. If y'all don't know, Clay Chalkville, that'd be the 6A. It was a 6A state title game. Correct. He tackles KJ Lacey in the open field. It's the final play of the game. Got to score a touchdown. He scrambled and looks like he has a good angle. And all of a sudden, DJ Barber just comes out of nowhere and knocks him down for the game-winning play. Christian, again, a guy that is kind of, lower down in the class, but then you go watch him and it's just super productive linebacker. Even down to the neck roll that he wears, he just sort of screams middle linebacker. To use sort of a shorter, stockier, more powerful type guy. What were your impressions from watching him in his recruitment?
Yeah, he's a really, really good player, and Auburn feels the same way about it. We were told by some people, keep him as the lowest rated guy. We want to make sure we hold on to that guy. We don't want the extra pressure there. We love him. We're absolutely psyched to have him. And now Auburn does have him. You mentioned that play in the state title game. That was the highlight on Instagram when they post his sign in. They posted like one highlight for every single guy at the very end. That was his highlight, fittingly. Winning the 6A title game. Jason, we got a chance to talk with him afterwards. He was saying, I'm just on that last drive. Someone throw it my way, run it my way, please. And it didn't really go his way, but he found a way to be in the way of KJ Lacey there on the final play. And it was a really impressive tackle. Saw him a couple times. Really impressive. He's not the biggest guy necessarily. When you see him in person, you're kind of like, I don't know. And then you get closer, especially in pads and a helmet, and you see him play extremely physical, and you see a guy that's pretty similar to Deshaun Davis.
Yeah, he walks through because he's already been on campus, and he wasn't around today, but he's already been on campus and around the team as a guy that's going through some bowl stuff. And he walked through and had a cutoff shirt on one day, and somebody said, hold up, is that they didn't recognize DJ Barber because they had not seen him where you could see his arms and see how strong he is and how broad his shoulders are. That's the thing. I've kind of used that KJ Britt comparison to him. Deshaun Davis is another one that comes up for him. But yeah, he's one of those guys, when you see him on the field, you look at him and go, man, he might be 5'9", 5'10". And then you stand next to him and you go, no, he's still taller than that, but he's so wide. But he carries it really well. He's just an athletic guy. So he's a guy that probably 30 years ago would be a guy that would be a lead fullback for some team because of the athleticism and a guy the way he plays. But he's a guy that's going to be a kind of that headhunter middle linebacker.
And his mentality is exactly what you want out of a middle linebacker. He just exudes and screams confidence, not necessarily loud confidence. It's a quiet confidence. He walked into the building for bowl practice when we saw him the other day, and he strolled in like he's been there for 3 years, like he's a senior. He strolled in like it was another day, and I think it was his first day there. He just has a quiet confidence to him, but he's a leader out there on the field. But in terms of his personality, it's just a quiet confidence.
If you guys want here, we can sort of take a pit stop because I've seen a bunch of these questions talking about the class. This one here, everyone's kind of had similar questions from Efficient Gaming on our YouTube stream. I really want to know who is left for us to get /flip. Who do we think have a real shot with? LJ McCray, the 5-star defensive lineman from Florida, is the one we sort of exited today, and we're thinking, Auburn, he pushed back his commitment. He pushed back his signing from today. He ended up sticking with Florida. KJ Bolden was the other one that Auburn had an eye on today. And look, Freeze, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, seemed to be mentioning him today when he said we felt like one of these other guys was coming a couple days ago, then decided to go the other way. He flips from Florida State to Georgia. So Christian, within the next couple of days of still the early signing period, February we'll get to, but that's sort of a whole different beast. We're talking about the early signing period here. Who are you going to be watching for Auburn to possibly add to the class within the next couple of days?
Yeah, if you're talking strictly high school guys, there's really only two, and they're both along the offensive line. One is Cohen Eccles, the interior offensive lineman from Katy, Texas. Auburn has been battling LSU. As of later today, seems like LSU has taken the lead. I switched my crystal ball there to LSU for Cohen Eccles, which would be a tough blow on the trail after all the work that Auburn has put in, but sometimes things just don't necessarily go your way. He won't actually announce anything until Friday, so you do still have some time there. And then the other one, Jason, is Favor Edwin, which has been it's been kind of a roller coaster process. It has felt like for a long time Auburn had him, and it was right there, and it felt like Auburn was going to get him in the class, and it was going to be any second. And we were ready, and we had stuff ready. We were prepared, and it never really happened. And part of that was because Florida was pushing for him to not commit to Auburn at that point. And then it felt like Auburn was going to get him again. And then he slowed down again because of Alabama. And now we're still in that holding process where it's Auburn and Alabama and Florida all kind of fighting to get his signature. He had planned to sign on Wednesday, and it's 7:30 at night Central Time now on Wednesday, and still no signature from him, as all three of those schools are still making calls to him, talking with him, trying to get his signature. As of later this afternoon, we were told that Alabama has faded out of it a little bit more, and it seems like it's down to Auburn and Florida. I guess I would maybe pick Florida. I don't really know. It's bounced back and forth so many times now to the point where I just don't know necessarily what to do in that recruitment and who to pick.
Yeah, I've kind of always leaned towards the relationship side of things for him because of Colton Hood, and because Colton Hood's the guy that really talked him into playing football for the first time. Something we found out this summer, and made a couple of those visits. That comfort level's been there. I don't believe he's a guy that is going to be ready to play college football. Step on campus. I don't think playing time is going to be a factor, or should be a factor, for a guy that's only played football for 2 years. Period. It's not like he's only played the last 2 years here. Like, he's only played football for 2 years. Period. This is a Prince Tega want to go junior kind of situation where you think about red shirt. Maybe that second year you start to kind of get a little feel for it and those kind of things. And that's kind of, I think, what Auburn is going to look. Hey, we're gonna be ready for you in a couple of years. That's kind of where we envision you. So that's one that I think that Auburn's still right there. But you're right. There's no telling, because you just don't really know, because it's such an unfamiliar position for a family and for a kid. It's not like he's been watching teammates go through this for years, or had an older brother that's gone through it and knows that. This is just kind of uncharted waters.
Yeah, I put in Alabama crystal ball. I guess it was probably a week and a half ago, whatever it was. And I was thinking about changing that to Florida today, but for me, there's no point in changing my crystal ball at this point. It kind of feels like a goose chase a little bit, and I'm just not really sure where the next step will lead. Still expect him to sign during this early signing period, but we'll see what happens. And then the last guy in terms of high school guys to be watching out for through this 2024 cycle is five-star wide receiver Ryan Williams, who is currently committed to Alabama out of Saraland, recently reclassified from 2025 up to 2024, still retained his five-star status, the number 10 player in the country. He's been committed to Alabama for a long time, but Auburn has really been the main team trying to pull a flip. Texas is in there, LSU is in there as well. I think Georgia's in the mix a little bit as well, but it really doesn't feel like he's going to leave the state. And he's planning to sign on his birthday on February 9th. So we've got a little bit of time to decompress after this, catch our breath. Jason, we'll hit the road, and then the Ryan Williams sweepstakes will start. Now, the transfer stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it has to even be during the signing period for transfers to go through.
They can pretty much do whenever they want to. That's correct. They can do anything. They can make a decision, and Auburn can basically, they could announce it, I think, after this. So, obviously AJ Harris is one that everybody's kind of following. Former 5-star from Glenwood School, Central Phoenix City, was at Georgia last year as a true freshman. That's a guy that everybody's kind of watching, a DB that could do multiple things. He could play multiple positions. And so that's one that everybody's paid attention to. And then you start to go, I don't believe wide receiver right now because of Ryan Williams. I think you go like, hey, let's see, let's try to get the guy you want and roll with him, in February. But I think the offensive line, I think that's the one spot.
We saw a new offer today.
Yep, had a new offer today. Joshua Miller, that played at Georgia last year, true freshman as an offensive tackle, and big kid, athletic kid. That's the kind of guy that fits the mold of what they would be looking for, in my opinion. A guy that's athletic enough to come into play and do some of those things, but still gives you a little bit of growth and future development on the offensive line. And so, I think probably one of each, one guard or one guard tackle and a true tackle. I think that would be the ultimate combination.
Yeah, well, if you got Joshua Miller, he's basically an addition to
the 2024 class again, basically, or 2023 class. Yeah,
really the 2024, because he redshirted and he has 4 years of eligibility. So
yeah, kind of like that Dylan Cinder role that you just did already. Now you bring in a junior college tackle. You've got Tyler Johnson. That's a redshirt freshman. That would give you the makings of that group. And we've heard good things. Obviously, we've seen Connor Lee. We've heard good things about Braden Joyner and EJ Harris, some of these young guys on that offensive line, to start to build that next 7, 8, 9 group of rotation that you want is they're getting pretty close to that if you can add a couple more pieces.
Yeah, offensive line was the one that Freeze mentioned today. It feels like their board has done a little shaken up. I don't know if reset is the right word, but he said what we've been reporting. He said it exactly. He said there were 2 guys we wanted and they went elsewhere. We know that to be Vinny Scurry from Toledo. That was their guard that they were looking at. And then Fernando Carmona, because they want to move Dylan Wade to guard. Fernando Carmona was from San Jose State. They wanted him to be their tackle guy. Was Freeze mentioned a few days ago, they couldn't even get those guys on campus, and that was sort of them, having some frustrations about this whole transfer process, maybe changing a little bit of their thinking when it comes to the transfer process of, hey, if you want a guy on campus, and we saw that with and Jamon Dumas-Johnson, the linebacker from Georgia, he signed with Kentucky today, but him and AJ Harris and the Duke linebacker, it was, we want these guys and we're going to get them on campus right now because we think they can, we want them in the boat. I'm hesitating to be able to pronounce the Duke linebacker's name, Christian, but
Dorian Mossy, I think.
Dorian Mossy was a guy that they added today, and I guess we'll touch on those transfers really quick. Jason, it was interesting. I asked Freeze about the transfers. All 3 of them have really intriguing roles, I think, and they sort of changed the calculus a little bit of what those position groups look like. Starting with Dorian Mossy, he said that, look, he's a big physical middle linebacker guy, and Freeze said, look, they've got good linebackers. They've got Eugene Asante. They've got Austin Keys. They don't have anybody who looks like him at that middle linebacker spot. And the interesting thing about Mossy was that as Freeze is talking about him, he's saying they can move Cam Riley to an off-ball edge rusher kind of spot if they develop that depth at linebacker. Gage Keys from Kansas is their other transfer guy along the defensive side of the ball. Also a really intriguing player because he didn't have a ton of production. His 5th college season, not a ton of production, but he was a guy that, look, we got messages all over the place when he left Kansas being like, that's a dude. That's a guy who has great tape. And Freeze kind of mentioned it really quick off the ball. They want him to add some weight and become a pure interior guy, who can kind of play that 3 tech. And then Robert Lewis from Georgia State, and also an interesting guy because he played almost exclusively the slot in 2022. Then this season, he played almost exclusively out of the slot. And so, like you said, Jason, we're looking at offensive line moving forward, maybe AJ Harris, a guy at cornerback. We're obviously observing those positions. But these 3 transfer guys, I don't think their roles are super cut and dry right now. And that's why I'm interested to see, kind of how they all fit into the equation.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting group. You're right. I think, you start talking about linebacker and go back and watch a little bit of Duke, and it's a classic, big physical middle linebacker. And I think that's what they were looking for, an experienced guy that could come in and play and be another one of those leaders. to go along with a guy like Austin Keys. And so it gives you a really good 1-2 punch at that position. So I think that's a big deal for this team. And you're right. It intrigues me a little bit to hear Hugh Freeze say, hey, maybe it allows you to slide Cam Riley to the jack linebacker spot. I think that would be something fun to watch. I think it's kind of where I've always envisioned him, winding up, and it just hasn't been able to get out there just yet because of the numbers at linebacker, and they've had to have him there. But that's an intriguing one to me. Keys, is a guy that, on defensive line, you start talking about, Freeze said, hey, I want to get him a little bit bigger, but he's got a big frame. He was a big kid. And I think the thoughts of him and Keldrick Falk, you still got Jason Jones there. We've seen DJ Reed and saw him in practice today, and boy, he looks really good. And so you start thinking about how much can those guys develop when you talk about DJ Reed, and then Malik Blocton's already on campus. You get TJ Lindsey, you have guys like that, and then obviously Amaris Williams. How much can those guys develop, and how much can they help you in year one? Maybe if you get 8 to 10 plays out of guys like that in year one, then that's massive in terms of building depth and keeping guys fresh for end of game situations. So I think it's a possibility, coming out of that. And wide receiver, experienced guy, gives you another body. I mean, they only have 6 scholarship wide receivers on campus for this bowl game. He'll give you 7 scholarship wide receivers for guys that aren't high school kids. And that's that's not a huge group. So they want to have some possibilities, and he'll give you some of that.
Yes, that was what I was going to get to next, Nathan. Glad you got that. Where's Towns? We're still trying to figure that out in terms of where Towns Magoo, the Auburn High kicker, is going to end up going. It's down to Auburn and Ole Miss. He has visited Auburn quite a bit, obviously being from Auburn High. He visited Ole Miss this weekend. Both schools, to my knowledge, are offering him a preferred walk-on opportunity with NIL that would cover, costs of not being on scholarship and going through school. I can't say Ole Miss's plan, but I can say Auburn would then plan to put him on scholarship when Alex McPherson departs, whenever that may be. Auburn seems to think that Alex McPherson may be gone after one more year, after his redshirt sophomore year, and that would be 3 seasons at Auburn. And he's been perfect so far in his Auburn career in terms of extra points and field goals. And obviously his brother is in the NFL. So Auburn is hoping that they can get Towns Magoo there to kind of wrap things up. There in the special teams, they obviously signed a couple of lawn snappers and J.R. Buckner and Keaton McNutt as well. And so don't really know. He's been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with the decision all day. We expected something today. Didn't get anything quite yet on Towns Magoo. Jason, maybe you know more than I do, but I don't really know anything besides the fact that he's still trying to figure out Auburn or Ole Miss.
I think that's it. I'm messing him a couple of times and pretty quiet right now. So I think there's probably a lot of conversations, a lot of thinking to be done right now for Towns. And so, whoever gets this kid is going to have a kid that's going to be a dynamic, kicker and a guy. I think for Auburn, you're going, hey, you're hoping it fits what you've done over the course of the last decade or more, starting with, Cody Parkey redshirting from West Byram, and then, Daniel Carlson redshirting from Cody Parkey, and Anders Carlson redshirting from Daniel Carlson, and then, McPherson redshirting with Anders Carlson. They've had those situations. This one will be a shorter window because it would be a third-year guy, but I think they're hoping, hey, kind of continue that run of guys, and it's hard to argue with the success that Auburn's kicking has had, and I think that's a good selling point for Auburn when you start looking at that run of guys that have come through here. And of course, the Carlson brothers are both kicking in the NFL. Cody Parkey had his run in the NFL, and I think they feel like he's a guy that could be the next one of those guys.
I wanted to touch on real quick before we go back to the list, just the offensive line outlook right now. We can talk a little bit about DeAndre Carter and Seth Wilford, their 2 offensive line pickups, Christian. But I think, talking about Cohen Eccles and maybe Auburn not being able to land him there, I guess just the outlook that you see for this offensive line group right now, what you think of those 2 guys, just because we've had some questions here. I know people are People are anxious to have high level offensive linemen, but look, DeAndre Carter's the guy that Hugh Freeze said today feels like he can be an NFL type player on the interior.
Yeah, DeAndre Carter, they had to go all the way across the country to go out there and get him from California. Jake Thornton was working that one. So was area recruiter and tight ends coach Ben Agamawa as well. Those two guys went all the way out there to get him. They managed to get him after a pretty quick process in terms of getting him in June, back for Big Cat Weekend. That was where he silently committed and then made his move about a month later publicly. And then, after that, it was Texas made a huge push to get him in the boat and try and flip him there. He went in for an official visit to Texas, was really, really considering it, but the Auburn staff was determined to hold on because Nathan, as you said, they view him really, really highly along the interior of the offensive line. Probably don't need him as a center with Connor Lew, at least locked up for the next 2 years. But Hugh Freeze did say that he could see a future at center with DeAndre Carter. And, he's a summer enrollee guy, Jason, so probably not a guy that will get into the mix next year, maybe has a chance to be in the 2 deep. He'll get some playing time probably in some of those games, but don't think he necessarily is going to walk into a starting role as some may think. And then Seth Wilford, the JUCO offensive tackle, we've talked about it before on this show. He is pretty much an extension of your high school recruiting class. He played 1 year out there at Snow College, so he's got 4 years to play 3, meaning he can redshirt 1 year and he can play 3 years. That's what he's got left. Really, really athletic, pretty much exactly what you're looking for at the tackle position in terms of being kind of the perfect frame. Still a young football player. He's originally from Nebraska, moved over to Bishop Gorman High School, the powerhouse in Nevada there, I think for his senior season, maybe a little before that. But he kind of got buried on the depth chart because it was a really, really talented high school. And that's how he ended up at the JUCO level. And very quickly, once he put some tape out there, Auburn figured out that was a guy that they really wanted as kind of a gem in the class. So Auburn does get him. I know there are people that are concerned about the offensive line recruiting as it kind of is setting up like Auburn will only add 2 guys. But after what we saw last year with Jake Thornton totally transforming that room, bringing 10 new guys in, you're losing some of those guys in Gunnar Britton and Avery Jones that were 1-year transfer guys. But he brought 10 guys in. That room does not look as bad as you may think that it does. In fact, the future outlook of that room is pretty bright. Jason, we've talked about it a lot. There's a lot looking up.
Better.
Yeah.
It's much, much better than it's been in years. When you think about, what they've done, I mean, we heard nothing but glowing stuff about Tyler Johnson in practices for the last 4 or 5 days. Dylan Senda is a guy that stepped up. Obviously, we've seen Connor Lew. I mentioned DJ Harris. Braden Joyner's a guy that has done some good things in that group as well. And I mean, Tutal was a first-year junior college guy. I mean, they think, okay, he's just now kind of figuring out who he is on that offensive line. But you got Jaden Muskrat and Dylan Wade, the guys that'll be back next year, the Tulsa transfers in there as well. And so you start putting those pieces together, and all of a sudden you go, that's a pretty good group to build around. So I think there are some things there. I didn't mention Jeremiah Wright coming back as well. You got Tate Johnson in there that has experience and a guy that can play guard or center. So I think the key is the development of a guy like Tyler Johnson. To me, that's where this one comes in, because they're just basically throwing out their left tackle right now and saying, hey, just swim. You go for it. And so far he's been able to do some pretty good things. And so, it's the offensive line. Would you have loved to sign, 4-star guys in this class? Absolutely. There's just not that many of those guys to go around.
I was going to say, if you look at the 2024 class, and we have said it from the beginning, it is a down year in terms of offensive line talent as a whole, and did not quite work out very well for Auburn in that situation. What does work out really, really well for Auburn is the 2025 class, especially in the Southeast, is absolutely loaded. We've already seen that with Auburn picking up Spencer Doland out of Athens, Alabama. Feel like they could be pretty close to getting Tavares Dice out of Langston Hughes. Braden Jacobs is a guy out of Buford, Auburn legacy that's been on campus quite a bit. Mal Waldrop from Central High School. You get Cam from Central this year. You like Auburn's chances maybe with Mal Waldrop again next year. There's a lot of guys that Auburn could get in 2025. Auburn's already loading up on the D-line in 2025. They've got, 3 guys already? Jordan Crawford, Kalen Edwards, Malik Autry, plus Jacaleb Falk as an edge rusher. I think Auburn could load up on both line of offensive line, defensive line next year to be honest, in that class. So I really don't have too much concern in offensive line recruiting. I really don't. I think Jake Thornton has proven what he could do already in both recruiting and his on-field production that we saw this year with a makeshift transfer portal heavy offensive line that really turned out pretty solid by the end of the year for Auburn.
We can get back to let's see if we can get back to those.
Someone brought his name up in the chat, Micah DeBose too,
Yep,
the elite offensive line that's currently committed to Georgia. But
I'm seeing an ongoing conversation about running back and not getting a running back in this class. And the main thing was that so I think we need a running back if Jarquez Hunter goes. Do not expect Jarquez Hunter. We expect Jarquez Hunter to be back.
Correct. I think if they had an idea that Jarquez was not going to be back, then they probably would. And here's the thing: if I don't know that it would change things, it still might be a transfer type guy, even if that's the case. So if that's the case, the running back's a spot where you say, okay, well, let's jump in. And speaking of jumping in, there he is, Malcolm Simmons.
What's up, Malcolm?
What's up?
Yeah, Jason, you just brought it up. Jumping in, Malcolm can jump out of any gym that he's in. He's
basketball tonight or on off night?
Off night.
Yeah, Malcolm, you were when we're talking about the class, you're our go-to when we say the best athlete in the class. You've done it on the basketball court. You've done it in track as a state champion. You've obviously done it in football, and you've done it at a lot of different spots in football. You've done it at receiver. You've done it at running back. You've done it at DB. You've done it at punter too. You're an all-state punter. I think that's something that people at Auburn are kind of excited about as well. Talk about your journey to get to Auburn and just how this process has kind of been.
It wasn't easy. It was a long process, and I just had to trust the process and trust what Coach Davis and Coach Reeves were telling me, and that's what I did. And now I'm Auburn Tiger.
You waited and were patient for a long time, and that's not something that is easy. But they kept telling you, "Hey, we're there, we're almost there," and you gave Auburn the opportunity to get there. What was it about this staff that allowed you to go, "Hey, I believe what they're telling me. I'm going to trust them that they're going to see it"? What was it about them?
Them keeping it real with me. They never changed anything. The same thing the first time they told me. They was telling me the second time and the times after that. So I knew them were the coaches I wanted to play for.
What about Coach Davis has made? I mean, he's had such a. Obviously, you look at the wide receiver class coming in, but he feels like a guy that really connects. Was there a connection for you guys, and was that a big part of things for you?
Oh yes, sir. Knowing that he played for Auburn and was on that championship team, it's a dream come true to play for a coach like that. And he's giving back to us, and he know what he needs to give to us so we can make it to the next level or be successful at Auburn so we can make it to the next level. So yeah, I seen that connection, and going to see other receiver coaches, they weren't talking how he was talking, and I felt like Coach Davis is a coach I can play for, and I felt like he a coach that's gonna push me to get the best out of me.
Malcolm, how much fun is it knowing that it's you, it's Bryce, it's Perry, it's Cam, maybe something with Ryan Williams as well, but there's at least 4 elite high school receivers all coming in at once.
It's a great feeling that I know we all from Alabama, and I don't have to try to link up with a kid that's out of state when we all in state. And man, Bryce played in the Alabama and Mississippi All-Star game, so him got a few little plays in what me and him was in together, and now it's just trying to work with the other 2 guys and see how they play and feel they vibe, and we'll be clicking when the first game comes.
Yeah, a lot of people might think that, man, wide receiver, I want to go where it's just me and I'm going to get all the balls thrown my way. But you guys have said, hey, we want everybody together. Can you describe that mindset for folks that it's when it's about everybody instead of one guy?
Yes, when it's about one person, the team don't win. Now, when you come together as a group, then you get more things done. And that's what we did. That's why we there. That's why we at Auburn, to come together as a team to get to them bowl games, to get to the playoffs, to win the national championship. If we don't get it first 2 years, you best believe third and fourth year we're gonna be there. So yeah, that's why we chose Auburn to be to build a strong bond with each other, so that we can get to them bowl games and national championship, hopefully.
So we got a question here, and we've already asked you this question when we were in Hattiesburg, and somebody said, "Who wins the race between you, Kane, Perry, and Cam?" Do people realize how fast Bryce Kane is?
I still don't think they know how fast Bryce is. But me, Cam, and Perry race, I beat them too. So I'm gonna race Bryce probably. I'm not gonna race Ryan. It ain't no point in me racing. There's no point in me. There's no point in me going out and racing him. Now Bryce, I race Bryce. Now I think when me and Perry and Cam raced, they got me in the first 40. But the last 20, I pulled away from him. But yeah, I believe me and Bryce Kane will be a good race. And I want to see Bryce and Ryan race too.
That would be a really good race. That would
Yes,
be a good
sir.
race.
Yes, sir.
Now, Malcolm, we saw that on your Instagram live, the video afterwards from you guys racing on Sunday. If y'all are not following Malcolm on Instagram, make sure to do that. It's on the screen. And then on Twitter at Malcolm Simmons 0. Make sure that you guys follow him, show him some love. He's been committed to Auburn. What was it, Big Cat Weekend? And you've been all the way Auburn ever since.
All the way out ever since.
Yeah, for you, what's obviously you're playing basketball. You'll be in what, May, early June, something like that. When what's your focus? And you say, hey, this is what I need to do to get prepared to play as a freshman. What are you focusing on?
Learning the playbook and learning how things go down there at Auburn. That's all. Me adapting fast and getting down there, because I normally do that anyway. I normally go, like when I left Benjamin Russell my 10th grade year to go to Jonesboro, I went down there and adapted to the play style and the playbook easy. So that's the biggest thing for me, going down there, learning the playbook and learning the style of Auburn, and I'll be good.
Malcolm, talk a little bit about this 2024 class. Y'all have built pretty tight-knit group. Y'all have that group chat always rolling. Really haven't lost too much of anybody out of the class in terms of keeping everybody together, keep all the receivers together. Walker has been one of the vocal leaders of the class. Just talk about the relationship that y'all have built already before even getting together on campus.
Like I said, them games during this season, we go to the games, we talk, and just getting to know each other and building the brotherhood. Like I said, as long as we come and bond as one, there's no way we should lose a game when all of us out there clicking. We all on the same page, and that's really what it's about. You and your future teammates on the same page. If one person off track, then he could throw the rest of the team off track. So that's really what it is. Us being in group chats before and talking about how we're gonna do and what we're gonna do when we get there. And that's all it's really about. Getting there and bonding with each other and winning games.
Malcolm, now that you've gotten to know all these guys, if you can pick anybody, who do you want to be your roommate when you get to Auburn?
I probably have room with Amon Lane. Probably
Okay.
me and him room together, because I think me and him coming down at the same time since he stand there do track. So probably me and Amon, and if it ain't me and Amon, then I don't know.
Could be you and Perry. Y'all are both getting there in the summer.
Me and Perry. But yeah, it's gonna be hard. It's between them two.
Okay. Nathan or Jason, any last questions, or do y'all want to let Malcolm get out of here?
Hey, it's been a long day. I know it has, and you probably have basketball practice tonight, so we'll let you slide out of here. We appreciate it, Malcolm, and might have to drop back in Elliott City and watch another basketball game here, and maybe in January.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Yes, sir.
There we go. Nice little surprise towards the tail end of the show there with Malcolm Simmons joining.
For sure. How do you guys project his? Because I feel like we talk a lot about the 2 5-stars, obviously, and then Bryce Kane is just speedy slot guy, speedy slot. I mean, that's like he's just such a prototypical guess, Christian, how would you describe Malcolm's role in terms of where you would see him fitting in as a college receiver?
That's a good question because he can do all of it pretty well.
Yeah.
He can, like I said, he can jump out of the gym. He won the state title in the high jump and the long jump. Go to Malcolm's Twitter, find some of the videos of him dunking in basketball. He could probably win a dunk contest in the NBA right now.
Or punting a football.
Yeah, that too.
I'm just telling you, I've said it, and I stand on it. I think before Malcolm Simmons is done, he is going to punt multiple times at Auburn. I don't know if he'll be the everyday punter, but I think he could be a punter and do some things. And like I said, we talked to a high school coach who said, hey, the thing that we prayed for when Malcolm Simmons was punting was a good snap. You didn't pray for a bad snap. You prayed for a good snap because you did not want him running around with it. And we didn't want to rush anybody. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, he's a guy that one of those guys you pick up anything, then you go, yeah, he could probably do it. And that's just who he is.
He's just he's not designated. He's not quite as tall as a guy like a Cam Coleman or a Perry Thompson, but he can play outside, especially with his jumping ability. And he's got enough speed that he can play inside as well. Maybe like a Caleb Burton in the sense that he can slide in and out a little bit. Very different players and play styles, but
he is more Percy Harvin type, stop and start, change direction. And he's got the speed, but he is more of that guy that every time he catches it, he looks like he's a punt returner. That's what he does. Right. And so yeah, much different than he's not a straight line guy. Now, he can run straight lines, but he's a guy that can make people miss.
Yeah, superb athlete as well. Like Christian said, we saw Walker came for that one camp over the summer, and Christian showed him a video of, what was it? Was it Malcolm throwing off the backboard to himself?
Yeah, it was when he bounced it up to himself on kind of a fast break, which we also the first time I got to see him play basketball, within the first 5 minutes, it was actually against DeMarcus Riddick.
Right.
He steals the ball and he bounces it up to himself and dunks it. Just an insane athlete. He is without a doubt, in my mind, the best overall athlete in this class.
And that's
you going to give him the superlative for it, Christian?
Yes, that is the superlative for Malcolm.
There's a lot to like, and it's a fun group and lots of potential when you start talking about these guys.
We'll continue rolling through the class here real quick and just touch on these guys. DeMarcus Riddick, you just mentioned him, Christian, the sort of fringe 5-star guy. He's a high 4-star linebacker that they flipped from Georgia in the summer. He's already on campus. Just an absolute freak in terms of his open field ability. That's the biggest thing that sticks out with him. Jason, I know you're interested to kind of see how he develops physically and where he kind of is on the field, because he's just a fast linebacker. It's just sort of
He's an athlete at linebacker.
Yeah, that's the thing. You start talking about athletes, and there's not many that stack up with him either, because he was a pretty good basketball player. This guy that returned punts at Chilton County, they put him in and he ran routes and it wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna throw you a screen. They were running deep post and doing that stuff with him. He's running by defensive backs. He's probably a guy that if you lined up and said, hey, what do you legit run a 40 in? He would be in the low 4.5s, I believe. I think he would be that fast. Question is he an inside or an outside? I think probably more of an outside guy, because he has that. Here's what he does. When you look at him, he has that, ability. You look like that. Man, that guy could probably run and turn corners almost like a motorcycle, where you think about like he's on a curve and doing those things, because he's so flexible. And so I think that flexibility, long, wiry body, I think he's a guy that probably plays at 235, but he never really looks like he's that big.
Sorry, I was shooting a text trying to get someone else here on the show real quick. He's just a really good athlete at linebacker, and he is someone that is very excited to be rolling as well. We talked about DJ Barber having a very big confidence going in, and DeMarcus Riddick was just, when we saw him, he was all smiles. He was so excited to be rolling at Auburn. And, Jason, I wrote about it earlier today. Him and Joe Phillips, two huge spark plugs for the Auburn class in the 2024 cycle. Joe Phillips got things going in June as Auburn worked behind the scenes to to get him away from, looked like Auburn was going to get him, and then Georgia had it all but wrapped up pretty much. And then Auburn worked behind the scenes to get him. That sparked that run. Getting Bryce, getting Jalen Crawford, getting DJ Barber, getting Malik Blocton. That got you through June and July a little bit. Then you got DeMarcus Riddick just a couple of days before Big Cat Weekend. And we obviously know what Big Cat Weekend yielded, not only at the time with guys like Perry and Malcolm Simmons, but later on with DeAndre Carter and TJ Lindsey and some of those other guys as well.
Yeah, no, you look at it, and Joe Phillips is another one of those guys that I don't think people realize how big he is until you see him, and he's a big kid, and a guy that it'll be interesting for me to see how he takes that natural linebacker spot, because he hasn't really played it. I mean, last year as a junior, he was kind of an outside guy that played a little safety, a little linebacker, did those things, and as he grew this year, he became a rush end and actually worked with former Booker T and Auburn walk-on and NFL player Willie Whitehead, and became a pass rusher and a guy that had a ton of plays for Booker T this year. How does he develop and take being that linebacker where you're the good thing is this system is not a bunch of read and react. As Eugene Asante said, we're not standing flat-footed a whole bunch. I think that helps Joe Phillips. I think he can attack and do those things. So that group of that trio of the linebacker position is really good, and then you add Jamonte Waller in that jack linebacker spot, and man, that's a fun group of versatile guys that can do some different things.
Yeah, well, Hugh Freeze mentioned it during his press conference today. He said, "I would be really hard pressed to find a team across the country that has a better wide receiver group that they signed and a better linebacker group that they signed, especially when you group in their Jamonte Waller at the jack linebacker spot." I think before it's all said and done, we were talking about Cam Riley a little bit. I think Joe Phillips is going to be that guy in the sense that I think, he may end up sticking here at linebacker, which is where he's practicing in bowl practice. I also think he'll get reps at jack linebacker, and they'll try and split him about as much as possible, as much as he can handle as he kind of learns playing in college a little bit. I just think he's so versatile there. And then Jamonte Waller, Jason, this is a guy we've gotten to know really well since January, February, whenever it was that Atlanta camp. And we knew, he was one of our names that we had highlighted going into it. We're like, we want to see this guy. Auburn's offered him. Let's see what's happening. And we saw him and we were like, oh my goodness, this is not the biggest dude here. This is not the most physically impressive dude here, but this is one of the most impressive players on the field rushing the passer here in these different drills.
Yeah. No, you're right. I still remember watching him and going, that's the kind of guy you want if you're Auburn's defense. And I was thinking about kind of how they would like to use it, and they want that speed, and they want that guy that can be versatile and do some of those things. And you're like, man, that's the perfect fit. That's who he is. And we saw Jalen McLeod, when healthy this year, deliver some of those things for this defense. And so now you look and go, and I talked to Jamonte Waller last night, and he's like, hey, I love that Jalen McLeod is back. I get to kind of walk in those shoes every day. I get to watch him and learn how he does it. And man, he's my size. And it shows you that you can do it at my size at the highest of levels. And so I love that fit. I think he's going to be just a ball player for the Tigers.
Yeah, you looked at Waller. I mean, in kind of assessing, because you'd be hard pressed to not say he's going to be in a really good position to be that backup pass rusher for McLeod this year. And that's what Freeze was kind of saying, is that he can sort of play behind Jalen McLeod this season. TJ Lindsey is a guy, Christian, I was talking to you about him today. Definitely projects as a defensive end type of player for them. He's a really good athlete out of the state of Florida, a guy that you've been high on for a while and have been watching his game. What do you see out of TJ Lindsey?
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time we saw TJ Lindsey. So, figured out that he was taking that official visit. I want to say the first weekend in June, early in June, whatever it was. Didn't really know a whole lot about him going into that, besides the fact that Auburn had offered him. He had an older profile picture on his 24/7 page. I don't think his height and weight had even been updated as well. And not necessarily the highest ranked guy. So we just didn't think too much of it, didn't know too much about him, just weren't really sure. And we were waiting to be able to talk with him afterwards and getting eyes on him. Oh my goodness, that is a defensive lineman that is very, very impressive when you see him when you see him in person. That's a guy who I think is pretty underranked in terms of what he's been able to do at the high school level, especially once he transferred over to IMG Academy and played really at the highest level as a senior. This is a guy that Auburn really liked. This is a guy that Texas really liked. And Texas recruits the defensive line really as well as anybody. So if you're holding off Texas to get a defensive lineman, Bo Davis, the defensive line coach there with the Texas Longhorns, you feel pretty good about what you're getting. When you pair up TJ with a guy like Malik Blocton, who we had on to start the show, you feel pretty good about the future of the defensive line, especially when you add a guy like Amaris Williams here on signing day on Wednesday, Jason.
Sorry, I'm just answering a question on the other side of things. I really like the addition of both those guys when you start talking about it. Obviously, Malik Blocton's a guy we've already talked to. And you look at his ability, but you look at Amaris Williams. We watched him, and if people have not gone and watched it, just do Amaris Williams huddle on his updated huddle link. This year, Clinton. Where he's playing running back at 260 pounds, and he's running away from guys and running over. It looks like like a man among boys, and he's just turned 17 years old, and he's a guy that weighed 225 pounds, less than a year ago. I don't know where he's going to wind up playing and how big he's going to be, but I have a feeling that he's going to be a guy that weighs 285 to 290 and probably plays more of a 3 technique by the time he's done. But he's got long legs, he's got long levers, as Hugh Freeze said today. And TJ Lindsey really had a strong season, physical, and so I don't know. I think it's an intriguing group when you start talking about it because of the pieces you have, and you have guys that can all play a big defensive end, but maybe be able to slide inside and do some pass rush stuff. Just kind of what we saw from Keldrick Falk this year. All of a sudden, you look at those 3 guys with a Keldrick Falk and with a DJ Reed, and now you look and go, that's 5 guys that have that similarity of all the 290, athletic enough to rush the passer, but bigger bodies. And you start thinking, okay, maybe put 3 of those guys on the field at the same time and then have a true pass rusher, still big enough to hold up against the run, but create a little bit more pressure from that interior defensive line, like we saw from Marcus Harris this year.
Yeah, so I think we know why Bryce has blown us off. Here he is on Instagram currently golfing. So he's doing like the virtual golf. So
he's probably out at Bunkers, I guess, the new spot in Auburn.
Is that the one in Tigertown?
No, it is. It's right by campus in the bottom of Uncommon, that apartment complex.
I know what you're talking about. Okay, yeah. So Bryce has a legitimate excuse. Another guy who's going to be we didn't see him on the practice field today.
We did see him moving in today, filling out paperwork and stuff while we were getting ready for Hugh Freeze's press conference.
Yeah, fun stuff. He was doing all the stuff that people don't see when you make your big signing and everybody's excited. They don't see the sitting in front of a computer going through all that stuff for hours. We talked about the defensive line. Yeah, the Amaris Williams thing. I hadn't seen it before today. Jason showed it to me. He just looks like a jumbo-sized running back. Like he carries the ball really well, and he had 600 yards and 12 touchdowns or whatever. So
as a senior, while playing both ways, and he had 34 tackles, 20 tackles for loss, and 12 sacks, playing both ways.
Yeah, so just an insane athlete there. Along the defensive line, let's see if there anybody. We talked about the offensive linemen. Go through the receivers. We've touched on all of them. We haven't touched on all of them. I want to talk just for a second because we sort of glossed over them. But the 2 5-star receivers. We've talked ad nauseum about these guys because Cam Coleman is the number 3 overall recruit in program history.
He's number 2 now. He got moved up after his ranking update.
So is he above? He's above Derek Brown now.
Yes.
Okay, so it's only Byron Cowart who's rated higher than him, and then Perry Thompson, also a 5-star, one of the best players in the country. You mentioned Christian, another guy who kind of got the ball rolling there and gave them some really big momentum in the summer. Just from what you guys have observed of watching these guys in person, obviously they are 5-star talents, but for everybody watching and everybody listening, how would you describe their skill sets and what they're going to bring to the field aside from their talent? Because everybody knows they're going to be talented. When these guys are actually playing football in the offense, in the system, how do you see them sort of translating to the college level, and kind of what are their differences? Because I think people see, and I'm excluded from that. They see 5-star, they see 6'3", 6'4".
Yep.
They just sort of assume it's like a big, jump ball, superb athlete kind of guy. But I know specifically Perry Thompson and his kind of ability in the screen game and whatnot. He has been, they're dynamic players in a lot of different ways. I guess, Jason, I'll start with you. What are kind of the differences between them?
Yeah, Perry Thompson, if you saw him, you might think he's an outside linebacker. And then when you see him play, you go, man, he's got running back skills. That's the thing. He's a guy that can catch the ball. But you look at him, and he can absolutely fly for a guy that's, probably, I would guess, 6'3", 215 to 220. He may not be quite that big. He might be maybe 210. But he's a big physical, body-wide, broad-shoulder guy. So when you watch him, you see, you're right. You see, yards after the catch, physical, tough runner, a guy that is going to be tough to bring down in the open field. I mean, that's the guy I see there, but he can also take it and run away from you. Cam, I've come back to, AJ Green for a long time, and I'm going to stick with that comparison. Cam looks like the classic receiver, but he gets, and Christian, he gets sold short a little bit on his run after the catch too. Because you think about him being the guy that just goes up and high points the ball and he catches the ball in traffic. He can make plays with his legs and run. He is a much better athlete in terms of yards after the catch and his running ability than people might give him credit for.
Yeah, Jason, Cam is a guy that we've gotten to know really well over the past couple of years. You were there when Cam really started practicing with the varsity team at Central. I think that was right before I joined on here at Auburn Undercover, but you went out there, and we've told this story on here before, but Patrick Nix said, I've got an NFL receiver for you. He's right over there, and he's Cam Coleman. Yeah. And we saw flashes of it as a junior, and then the light bulb really turned on when they played IMG Academy, played the best of the best. Cam had that crazy catch where he caught the slant, broke about 10 different tackles.
Yeah, he a couple of them twice.
Yeah, and he fought his way down to the 1 yard line, had a couple other catches in that game as well. And then it all clicked for him. Then he fully started to realize who he is and who he can be. I don't think that was proper grammar there, but it's been a long day. We've been up since 5 a.m. But just an incredibly talented jump ball receiver, really good speed. The thing I will always go back to when you're talking about yards after the catch, now that I'll think about, is after that state title game where he has that 73-yard touchdown, and he beats Anquan Fagans, the really highly rated DB in 2025, who was on campus at Auburn this weekend. And then he outruns Caleb Harris, Auburn's safety signee now in 2024. That's something that'll always stick with me. And then in terms of Perry Thompson, people always compare Cam Coleman to A.J. Brown for a former Hugh Freeze guy. I think Perry Thompson is A.J. Brown because I think A.J. Brown's specialty, I think Perry will continue to progress. I think he's already really good at the jump ball and those kind of contested catches. But Perry's specialty right now, and it's something that I think A.J. Brown leads the NFL in terms of yards after catch right now. That's Perry's specialty. A man that big playing receiver. When we that, and we saw him play, he's elusive. He was dipping a tackle every time. He was juking guys out. He's so much better catching a slant and taking it for another 15 yards than you may think that he is. I think he's A.J. Brown all the way. And, in terms of optics, in terms of winning his recruitment, Jason, without a doubt, for my signee superlatives, he's not. Cam is the highest rated. Perry's the most important recruit and the most important win for Auburn recruited in the 2024 class in my mind, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah, because of when it happened and because of how it happened, it really helped. It did. It gave it a different feel. It really did. And I think when you start talking about the ability for him to make those plays and do those things, I think for different reasons. I think for this class, his kind of kick-started this finish. I think for Auburn football, Cam Coleman to get in Central Phoenix City was a big deal. I think that's something. I mean, we've talked about it, as we've gone to watch games, and we've probably seen Central play 7 or 8 times in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And every time we'd be on the sidelines and somebody would come up and go, "Hey, who's the last player Auburn got from Central Phoenix City?" And you got to go, John Broussard. It was 8-9 years ago. Okay, before that, Jonathan Wallace. Okay, before that, you start going back and you go, it's the last guy that was a difference maker player that came out of Central Phoenix City, and you go, Ed King and James Joseph. I mean, those are guys that played for Coach Dye in the late 80s. To be able to go in and get a guy like Cam Coleman out of Central Phoenix City, and we know what's there. We know that Dalen Upshaw and Mal Waldrop and Tristan Lyles, and that's one that people just go ahead and hang a star by Tristan Lyles, because we just talked about Jamonta Waller. This is a kid that has a very similar skill set and can really play for a sophomore at Central Phoenix City. But I don't know. It's I think the importance of getting in that school and having a guy like that committed, and then Dylan Gentry walking on with him, teammate. That's something that could pay dividends for years down the road, and it's been a long time coming for Auburn.
Yeah, well, it's two powerhouse schools that Auburn has really struggled to recruit over the past couple of years that Auburn gets back in. Caleb Harris at Thompson, Cam Coleman at Central Phoenix City. We'll see what happens with A.J. Harris, the transfer cornerback as well. So
get back in Mobile with Bryce Kane and Foley, obviously the Mobile area with Perry as well. So there's when you make recruiting the state of Alabama a focus, then you start to do some of the things that we saw this year.
To answer the question, Nathan, that you put up from Orion, can the wide receivers block? Perry loves blocking. Perry takes pride in being aggressive and blocking, putting guys on the ground. That is something that he definitely takes pride in. I can't tell you really about the other guys as much. I honestly just don't know.
I know that you're Cam Coleman and you play for Patrick Nix, then you're going to have blocked before. Benjamin Russell runs the football. Bryce, I mean, here's the thing about it. Do they block as well as they will need to in the Southeastern Conference? No, because they're in high school. And I don't know that a high school receiver I've ever seen that did that. Not one that was on this level. Or do they have the mindset? We just heard Malcolm Simmons say, "Hey, we wanted to all be together because we want to win." If you do that, then they'll learn to block and they'll be okay.
Yeah, and of course, it all comes back to Marcus Davis as being one of the most important assistants that Hugh Freeze brought on. I mean, it's paid that connection. We heard Malcolm talk about it, and that's something that's been referenced by a few different recruits.
Nathan, he is. Go ahead. Sorry,
go ahead, Christian.
No, I was just going to say, looking at the 24/7 Sports recruiter rankings, Fran Brown is number one, who is still credited for some of those Georgia guys before he left for Syracuse, and also credited for some of the Syracuse guys as well. He has 7 commitments. Holloman Wiggins over at Alabama is number 2. He has 9 commitments. Number 3, Marcus Davis with his 4 commitments. Number 4, Jason Taylor with 5 guys. Number 5, Donovan Raiola at Nebraska with 6 guys. Number 6, 6 guys. The next guy with 4 guys is Trey Scott at number 8. So Marcus Davis is far and above in terms of the number of guys that he's responsible for.
Yep.
Really, really high up there in the recruiter rankings.
And I wanted to just mention really quickly, the receivers have been getting so much attention, and this receiving class has been getting so much attention. And I'm glad Hugh Freeze pointed out the linebackers today, because on the defensive side of the ball, that's also a group that you feel like can be. You look at some of the elite teams in the country; they have those guys who can fill gaps really quickly at linebacker. But Christian, me and you were talking today about somebody that we know at 24/7 that is in the scouting department and who has worked with major college programs before. And he was talking about when he arrived at a major college program. And he said the very first order of business at this program, at a Power 5 program, the very first order of business in terms of roster building was get the wide receiver room a lot better. And his reasoning was, look, that's for your offense, biggest thing that can make a change. And so again, it goes back to, we had some people in here talking about Peyton Thorne, how he's pretty much got no excuses. These guys are going to be freshmen, so let's obviously have a caveat there. But it is the biggest step, and that's what Hugh Freeze talked about today. He said it feels like when they got those good receivers. It feels like when they got an A.J. Brown there at Ole Miss, just because, Jason, that's, as you know, looking at the best programs in the country, we're about to watch them in the playoff. You have to have dudes who can make plays on the outside. And look, it may not be this season that they're lighting the world on fire, but Auburn knows that they had to do something like this, and Marcus Davis took it to the extreme, and heck, they might not even be done yet.
Yeah, no, I think when you start talking about, I mean, you got to have offensive line, and they've done a good job of doing that. You don't have to have a bunch of NFL offensive linemen to be good enough to win, but you got to have a bunch of NFL wide receivers to be good enough to win, in my opinion, to go out and win a national championship and to be in a playoff contention, because that's where right now you can run a football and go say, hey, we can go run it, and you can run it and run it and run it. But my guess is that's what Michigan has done all season long, and that ain't going to be enough to score a bunch of points against Alabama. You got to have some guys outside that can make plays, and you need to have guys that can turn an 8-yard gain into an 80-yard gain. That's how you overcome issues on offense. That's how you overcome when you go like, okay, do I have a quarterback that can drive it 80 yards down the field? We saw one of those guys at Tennessee. They had issues throwing the football because they lost a couple of NFL wide receivers. It goes hand in hand, and we've seen it, whether it be at Alabama, we've seen it in the NFL and all over the place. I keep going back to the Miami Dolphins have been lighting up everybody. Tyreek Hill goes out for 2 series, and they look like the Dolphins from 4 years ago. It just that quickly. It shows you the importance of having those guys outside, and Auburn went and got them. We'll see how quickly they can get ready to go and turn into those guys. But you've given yourself a chance.
Yeah, let's we already got a chance to talk with him, but last guy that signed today, not counting transfers, Walker White, Auburn's quarterback, the leader of the class. It's fair that we finished with him. He was really the first big win in terms of the 2024 class for Auburn. Jason, it did not feel like Auburn would have enough time to be able to get Walker White. Clemson had been recruiting him for a really long time. Some of those other schools had been recruiting him for a really, really long time. Hugh Freeze and Auburn had been recruiting him for about 6 weeks. They got him on campus for one visit. He visits Clemson last. Usually if a kid visits somewhere last, it kind of is tough to beat. And we had him on the podcast earlier this year, and he said that in the Clemson hotel was when he decided that it was Auburn for him. He just had that feeling that it was Auburn. You can't say there's not enough words for Walker White being a recruiter and being a guy that's a vocal leader of the class. He's exactly what you want out of a quarterback. He has totally taken command of being the guy and wanting to be the guy. Driving down for different events, driving down just to camp at Auburn, just to spend time with Bryce Kane and Malcolm Simmons and the coaching staff and everything, making custom sweatshirts with other recruits' names. Walker has been the true leader of the class without a doubt, and he's got a lot of really good tools as a quarterback as well.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that this is not a kid that grew up coming to Auburn football games and going to Auburn games and wanting to play at Auburn. This is a kid that grew up going to Arkansas games,
watching the Hogs,
and wanting to play at Arkansas, and I mean it's the entire family. I mean this is an Arkansas family, but he found something at Auburn he was looking for. But yeah, Hugh Freeze and this staff and Philip Montgomery and everybody involved. This was one that we talked about. What it takes. It takes an all-in effort for a group of guys that is immediately when they got on campus, it wasn't 2 days later. Okay, looks like they found their guy, and their guy was Walker White, and they never wavered from that. And they're like, okay, this is our guy. This is who we want. They had done enough, leg work, and obviously, they've been at Liberty, and so you're recruiting those guys, and you're probably at Liberty. They're going, I don't know if we'll ever get to that guy, but if we get somewhere we can, that's the guy we want. When they got to Auburn, they already had it. It was going. They were working on it, and they went and got their guy. And we know why. I mean, we've seen him play, but more importantly, we just talked to him. We've talked to him a bunch. We've been in their house.
Waffles at 10.
Waffles at 10 or 11:30 or midnight or whatever time it was. This is the kind of guy that we heard Cam talk about it. We've heard other guys talk about it. That you go, okay. No matter what, maybe he doesn't have a great game. Maybe he doesn't throw for 5,000 yards. What he's going to do is everybody's going to be on the same page, and he's going to be that guy that's a leader, and he's already shown that in the recruiting process. And so looking forward to watching him develop because the one thing about it, he loves to play the game. And we saw that whether it was 7-on-7 in Hoover this summer, a hot night where we got delayed because it was so hot to watch a game that they said, hey, we're not going to start till 8 o'clock in Little Rock. So looking forward to watching Walker and see what he does.
Yeah, that stuck out to me in a big way, what Cam Coleman said. And really just at every turn. And look, we've talked to him a bunch of times, and it is just that. I mean, we've talked to him on campus several times. Me and Jason look up in the stands toward the end of the game in Fayetteville. I'm like, that guy looks like Walker White.
I've been texting with him, and I was like, hey, are you here? And he's like, yeah, I'm sitting up here above the band. And I'm like, okay. And I look up, and he's sitting about 5 rows behind the Arkansas band. And then toward the end of the game, he's like, yeah, do you think I can get down there? And I'm like, well, I don't know. And he tries to come down the stadium security. And I'm like, guys, there ain't nobody left here but about 50 people in the student section. You can let that guy walk down here to the rail and he'll be okay. And they finally let him come down.
I'm getting the picture that you got, because that's one of my favorite pictures in the entire cycle. It's that one that's the picture of DeMarcus Riddick and Perry Thompson together, because those two were so crucial. But this picture is so funny to me, and it's so Walker after the game. Let's see. I think I've got it here pulled up.
Got to make it a PDF. Christian.
Yep, I did that. Don't you worry.
In order to put it in here. There it is.
There we go. Yep, that is one of my favorite pictures of the whole entire cycle.
That's some meme material, if I do say so.
I was actually, funny you say that. If I was not extremely tired before the show, I was going to make a little chat bubble of him yelling that he's on the show tonight, but but I was too tired, and I took a little bit of time off
before I post the podcast in the morning.
It's a good point. Will I do that? Probably not, but everyone that's watching live and watching later can appreciate the picture that Jason got of Walker.
What I was saying was like it never seems like, and we talk about this aspect of Walker because that quarterback leadership, it is just so important. I mean, there's no way around it, especially for a guy who feels like a building block for the first full class under Hugh Freeze. Just always gracious with his time, and whenever I just never felt like I was annoying Walker, just saying, hey, it's not, I don't really feel like we ask a lot of him in the first place, but he's always just been really, really great with all of us, and you see that connection happen with the players as well. And yeah, that what stuck out to me about what Cam Coleman said about he was always making sure that he was good, even when he was committed to Texas A&M, he was keeping that relationship going, and just that lots of positivity and lots of confidence for him too. Look, this is a guy who knows he's a good quarterback, who wants to come in here. He knows that this year, obviously he's comfortable with this year, knowing there's already 2 guys that have been in the system. Me and Christian were talking about it today, though. 2025 quarterback battle. I just sort of once pen was to paper, and it was like Walker White's officially going to be here. The White versus Gariner in 2025,
and Hank Brown too.
And Hank Brown as well. Like that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to what that means for the offense, because looking at Walker White, I mean, it's not just the leadership skills. That game you guys went to was one of the craziest throws I've ever seen a high school quarterback make at the beginning of that game. So, I mean, he's got the arm talent too.
Yep. You got everything you're looking for. Like I said, now it's just a matter of kind of fitting into the offense. And, there's a lot more pieces to fit in this offense starting next fall than we've seen in quite a while. A lot of them are going to be young, inexperienced, but there's a lot more pieces to fit in, and that's exciting to see.
There's a couple more I put in the chat that we're about to close up, and so there's a couple more questions. It looks like there's really only 2 that we wanted to get to. Asking about AJ Harris, Jason, I think a lot of people have sort of latched onto him as a transfer candidate when he was on campus. A guy that Auburn obviously was able to get to campus really quickly, a guy that they felt like they had a chance with here in the transfer portal. I guess just what's the latest from him, Jason, that you've heard?
Yeah, not a whole lot. He is a really quiet guy. Always has been a quiet guy. Not really a whole lot of media stuff from him. And I remember, probably other than, hey, you got a couple of pictures when I've watched him play, that's about the extent of a whole lot of things. And, of course, he was headed to Georgia, so there wasn't a whole lot. To be quite honest, there was very little Auburn traction for him. But I go watch Central play, and give him a couple pictures here or there, and some of those things. And so, so he's been really quiet. I think that's a guy that Auburn would obviously love to add to this group because he's still got an entire career left to play. He's experienced for a year, but he's a different type of guy. He's not the long, lean body, but he's a long guy, but he's not lean. He's a physical. This is a 195 pound DB that looks like a guy that you get, and he was a really good running back at Glenwood too. He looks like a guy that you could play at running back and he'd fit right in. And that you have a guy like that could play in the secondary, that can run, and he's a legit 4-4 guy, then it gives you a lot of options. So I still think Auburn is right there. Here's the thing about it, A.J. Harris, that people may need to understand. He may not say anything, and he may show up and enroll in school and start in January, and nobody will ever know.
Yeah, we went the Duke transfer today that frees.
I could very well see that happening with A.J. Harris going, hey, I'm in. I don't need anybody to know it, and we're fine. And so it could be that simple for a guy like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't really have much else to add.
No, you bailed me out, Christian. I was slow to the unmute button. The other one this is the only other thing that really has been brought up here is what transfers is Auburn looking at and at what positions. We kind of glossed over this when we were talking about the 3 transfer guys so far. Peyton Thorne actually mentioned it this week. He said he expects them to bring in another transfer receiver. That's not a surprise. We sit here and we talk about these guys. They're still really young. Bring in another transfer receiver. Lines of scrimmage. Look, the offensive line, we talked about it. It's a bit of a board shakeup there. And we saw some new offers start to go out over the last few days as they obviously analyze that. We're in a dead period in terms of visits, but guys can still enter the portal. Guys can obviously commit during this time too. We're just not going to see a lot of visits for them. Defensive line as well, maybe another guy because you feel like you need some difference makers there with Marcus Harris gone. They filled the gap at linebacker. Defensive back, they're in a position, Jason, where I feel like they don't need somebody. They're not scrambling for a superstar. That they like their game plan now with Keontae Scott and feeling like Laquan Robinson could maybe be
you still got Donovan Kaufman back.
You got Kaufman at nickel.
Stanley, J.D. Rim.
But they have been looking for guys like Harris and some safeties too.
I think that would be a guy, yes. The thing I look at wide receiver is with that Ron White. With Ron Williams carrot hanging out there.
Yeah.
You start going, okay, do you get a 6? Then that would be 7. Then also, I won't be surprised if I say, hey, let's see what happens with Ron Williams.
Yeah.
If you don't get that guy, and that's the guy you really want, then you go, hey, let's see if we can bring another transfer in. I think that he's just so valuable. I don't know that you risk doing that to bring in another guy. Offensive line, that's going to be the one I think now moving forward. No matter what happens with Faber Edwin, they're going to look for another guy to come in and play. And we mentioned Joshua Miller earlier that was offered today, the Georgia transfer. There'll be a few more of those guys. Was UCLA transfer last night, interior offensive lineman that played at Purdue before that.
There's the USC transfer as well.
USC transferred from a couple of days ago. So there'll be a few of those guys. And, there's guys that can take visits the first weekend in January, I believe. Right.
I think it's the 3rd through like the 7th or something like that.
They have a visit window weekend in early January where guys could still then get in school and start up the next semester. So I would look for that to potentially be a rather interesting weekend for Auburn, especially for offensive line guys.
Yeah, and like you said with the receiver, we might have been talking about this before we got rolling. They have got time. The transfer process is not as pressing, cut and dry, got to get in here. It's really sort of an ongoing thing all the way until the summer when you can start to get guys in there because they're not freshmen starting college. They're obviously bringing their credits over. And so I think we can call it there, you guys. We've been going for almost an hour 45.
We absolutely can.
I can see you guys are, I know, are getting a little tired.
And I was working on Dorian Mousy. He was trying to attempt to get on with us. Hoping to be able to reach him tonight at some point. But I was hoping to drop in here and let everybody get a chance to see him and talk to him a little bit. But he was on the road, so hopefully be able to get up with him tonight and have something on him for tomorrow. But folks, we'll wrap it up. But we got a lot more things to talk about from this class and moving forward in the next few days.
We have so much stuff. We have so much stuff on the way just for tomorrow alone, coming to auburnundercover.com. So if y'all are just watching this on YouTube, if y'all are just listening to our podcast and you've never been over there, definitely come check us out. I think it's a 60% off annual sale right now around the holidays, maybe 50% off. It's somewhere around there. But you can definitely get yourself a deal right here around Christmas and the holidays to take advantage of all the content that we're putting out. Look, the transfer portal is going to be rolling. We're going to start hitting 2025. I mean, we already have quite a bit, but we're going to start doing that.
Let's go ahead and throw in a little basketball recruiting tomorrow too. How about that?
There you go too. Yeah, because there were some guys on campus this past weekend. And you got a chance to talk with them. Some 5-stars. So
that is a teaser right there, folks. That's what we call that from
in the profession, which I'm not very good at, but we'll try it anyway.
Yeah, I mean we've been enjoying it. Signing day is crazy, as always. But you two gentlemen have done an excellent job, and we've had a bunch of great stuff over on the site. Yeah, Paul says we need more round ball. Basketball season about to kick into high gear. It already has kicked into high gear. They played 10 games. I'll have some basketball coverage going this week as well. And like Jason said, have some basketball recruiting tomorrow. Yeah, Christian.
I was just going to get in one more thing. Just thank you to everybody that hopped on the show in terms of signees that hopped on. Thank you to everyone else that signed as well, even the guys that didn't hop on the show. We've interviewed all these guys. We've talked with all these guys. They've all been absolutely fantastic. It's been a really, really fun class to cover. Everybody's been really great. So appreciate all of them. Congrats to all of them, obviously, whether they signed with Auburn or signed elsewhere. It's been a fun year in recruiting. And Hugh Freeze mentioned it at his press conference today. Shout out to all the people behind the scenes at Auburn that do a ton of work as well. Guys like A.K. Magula, Ethan Johnson, Kennedy, Bianca, Zaria, T. Reed, the GAs, guys like Vontrell King-Williams, people that don't get enough credit. Hugh Freeze mentioned the pilots for in-home visits.
There's a whole lot of people that are in the recruiting process. There really are. And so it is an entire team effort. So yeah, there's lots of folks that deserve right now to already be asleep. That would probably be the thing for them. Hey, let's thank probably the few thousand people that dropped in tonight too.
Yeah, sure.
That have been in it.
Yeah, we've been hovering around 600, 700 people this whole time, and so I don't know how much that's going to equate to by the time we're done with it. It doesn't really apply to Jason because he keeps the team coverage. Christian, every signing day, do you feel a bit like sending your kids off to college? Like, what is that feeling? I guess, like you said, moving to 2025, of like, you develop a good relationship with these guys, and they enjoy that aspect of things. What's kind of that feeling when it's signing day and you move on to the next class?
A little bit, but it is fun. We saw Bryce at the facility earlier today, like I mentioned, filling out paperwork. So you still get to see these guys around, and then you hope that you get to see them moving on to the next level in the NFL draft as well. We see Camden Brown at the facility all the time, and he was one of the first guys that I covered when I first started doing recruiting. Still a joy to see him all the time. Even these transfer guys that we barely get to know, real quickly through the process. Guy like Rivaldo Fairweather, get to see him a bunch. So it's fun to see. It's fun to see these guys grow up a little bit through the process. We talked to Malik Blocton. That's a guy that we've talked to so much over the past couple of years. So we always appreciate getting to talk with him, and again tonight, and get to see those guys take the next step. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a fun time. And I'll always go back to, I'll tell the story for you. I'll always go back to Bryce Kane walking right past Hugh Freeze to you in the facility. That's my guy, Christian. So yeah, it's I only get obviously a little bit of it, but it's a joy to get these relationships with them and see what they do now at Auburn. And so yeah, again, we really appreciate everybody for tuning in. We know this is a hefty show. It was last year. We didn't go as off the rails as we did with Dukes last year, but it was still a good time, obviously, with all of those signees. So again, we appreciate them.
Well, and look, for the people that are here on the YouTube, we'll do our best to clip this up a little bit, maybe upload it as smaller videos as well, and we'll get that up on the site, obviously, as well for our subscribers at Auburn Undercover. So we'll try and clip things up a little bit because we don't expect y'all to listen to a nearly 2-hour podcast. But for everyone that was here the whole 2 hours tonight, really, really appreciate it.
I was going to say, there's
Christmas driving to be done. We can get you 2 hours up the road somewhere. So
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So Merry Christmas to everybody. I don't know how many more podcasts we'll have until then. But Jason and Christian have been killing it all day and throughout this cycle. So hope everybody has enjoyed. Like Christian said, all kinds of stuff at Auburn Undercover. this week and well for the rest of time, because that's what we do for our jobs. So you can always go over there and find Auburn stuff. So thanks so much, everybody, for listening to the show. Go leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts right now if you guys enjoyed it. That'd be freaking awesome. I think we're at like a 4.7 right now, which is pretty good. Thank you guys so much again. AuburnUndercover.com for Christian Clemente and Jason Caldwell. We'll catch you guys later. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk to you all soon.